Dawn rose pale across the valley. The sky brushed with a silver light that seemed to linger more than shine. Mist curled low over the grass, clinging to the ground like a secret unwilling to lift. A Mustang foal, barely steady on his legs, nosed at the dew-heavy stems, each movement uncertain but brimming with the bright eagerness of new life. His coat caught the early light, a soft sheen against the haze, while his small ears twitched at every rustle. Behind him, the mare stood sentinel, her frame taut, her gaze sweeping the horizon as though every shadow held the weight of threat. She had known storms, hunger, and pursuit, but none had tested her more than the fragile life pressing close to her side. The foal stumbled as he tried a half-hearted leap after a butterfly, his legs tangling beneath him. He crumpled into the grass, then rose again, shaking off his tumble with the stubborn pride of the very young. The mare's nostrils flared, a sound like a warning and a comfort all at once, urging him back toward her flank. He obeyed, though his wide eyes still chased after the shifting colors of wings that had already vanished into the mist. The world around them was hushed, as if it too had paused to watch this quiet play. Cliffs loomed to the west, their faces dark with the weight of time, while a narrow river wound silver through the valley floor. Birds should have sung from the branches lining the water, but the air was curiously bare of song. Instead, the faint creak of settling trees echoed now and then, unsettling in its solitude. The mare heard it all, her ears flicking, her muscles restless beneath her hide. She shifted her weight and exhaled, a sound that cut through the silence like the softest warning bell. Her foal pressed his nose against her shoulder, reassured by the simple closeness. He was too young to name fear, too young to understand the silence carried more than peace. To him, the valley was endless wonder, every blade of grass a discovery, every shaft of light a promise. But she knew better. She had felt the rhythm of predators before, the way the earth itself seemed to brace when danger prowled unseen. She lowered her head, nuzzled his neck, and felt the rapid beat of his heart quickening beneath his skin. The bond between them was wordless but unbreakable, shaped by survival and the quiet fierceness of love. A distant crack split the air, no louder than a branch snapping under weight. The foal lifted his head, ears swiveling. His mother froze, her body a wall of tension. She studied the tree-lean, the way shadows pooled deeper than they should, the way the mist seemed to hesitate at the edge of the woods. For a long breath, nothing moved. Then, a bird burst suddenly upward, wings flapping hard, vanishing into the sky as if fleeing something far larger than itself. The mare stamped once, the sound sharp against the hush, urging her foal closer. He resisted only for a moment, his youthful restlessness pulling him toward curiosity. But the mare's firm nudge pressed him against her side. He yielded, though his gaze lingered on the trees as though he expected another surprise. She knew this was how danger often came, quietly, then all at once. Her memories flickered with images of hunts survived, of companions lost to shadows that struck from silence. Survival had taught her that the smallest signs were rarely lies. The mist began to thin as the sun rose higher, revealing the valley more clearly. Rocks glistened with dew, the river gleamed brighter, and still the hush persisted. The foal leaned against her, the warmth of his body steadying her resolve. She inhaled deeply, catching only the sharp scent of wet grass and stone. No predator's musk, no sudden intrusion of man. Yet the unease remained, coiled tight in her chest, whispering that the valley was not as empty as it appeared. She lowered her head again, brushing her muzzle along the foal's back. He shivered under the touch, but relaxed quickly, reassured by the ritual. He did not know the meaning of her gestures, but he understood enough that she would keep him safe, that no shadow yet had broken the circle of her watch. For now, that was enough. The foal's eyelids fluttered, heavy with the weight of his early play. He folded down onto the grass, legs tucked awkwardly beneath him, and sighed a thin, contented breath. The mare stood over him, tall and unyielding, her gaze still trained on the dark line of the forest. The mist lifted higher, the day stretched wider, but her vigilance never wavered. She did not trust the quiet. She knew it too well. Yet in that moment, as the foal drifted into his first morning sleep, the valley felt like a world holding its breath, waiting. And though she could not name the shape of the danger still hidden, she knew with certainty it would come. And when it did, every choice she made would be weighed against the single life she had been given to protect. The valley shifted as the day lengthened, its earlier calm unsettled by a new weight pressing against the air. The sun hung pale and muted behind a gauze of clouds, draining the light of warmth. Shadows gathered in places they did not belong, stretching long fingers across the grass. The mare sensed it first, her body stiffening as her ears flicked forward, catching a sound that did not belong to wind or river. The foal, still restless from his nap, tugged at shoots of grass, unaware of the change that made his mother's breath grow sharp and shallow. The sound came again, heavy and deliberate, not the scattered rustle of deer or the cautious step of another horse. The rhythm was too measured, too commanding, as though the ground itself hesitated beneath its weight. The mare lifted her head high, eyes narrowing at the tree-line. From the dim edge of the forest, something moved. It emerged slowly, as though the mist itself had been given form. A hulking figure broke the veil of shadow, shoulders broad as boulders, arms long and knotted with muscle. The gorilla's dark coat caught the dim light, slick in places with the sheen of damp. His chest heaved, and with one deliberate motion he struck it, the thundering sound rolling across the clearing like a drumbeat of war. The foal froze, his head jerking up, his legs trembling under him. The mare's instinct was immediate, primal. She stepped forward, her body forming a barrier. Her tail lashed once, her nostrils flaring as she stamped the ground in warning. The gorilla's eyes, small yet burning with territorial fury, locked onto the foal with unsettling clarity. This was no aimless wanderer of the woods. It was a creature defending its claim, and in its mind, the young Mustang was an intruder too fragile to be tolerated. The foal whimpered softly, pressing his flank against his mother's side. He had no understanding of the looming threat, only the unshakable belief that as long as she stood above him, nothing could harm him. The mare, however, felt the full weight of the danger. Her heart pounded with fear, but fear did not guide her. Love did. The gorilla advanced, each step heavy enough to tremble the earth. His arms swung low, knuckles grazing the dirt, a rhythm of power meant to intimidate. He let out a guttural roar, deep and resonant, that sent flocks of birds erupting from the trees in panicked flight. The sound rattled the foal to his core, his legs threatening to buckle, but still he clung to his mother, hiding beneath the arc of her body. For a moment, the mare considered retreat. She had survived this long by reading danger and knowing when to yield. But retreat meant abandoning the foal, leaving him exposed to the brute force of a beast that would not stop until his small cries were silenced. That was a cost she would not pay. She pawed the ground again, throwing up clods of earth, and angled her body so her hindquarters faced the threat, hooves poised to strike. Her breath came in hot bursts, the scent of her fear mixing with the sharpness of determination. The gorilla paused, tilting his head, as though assessing her defiance. His chest swelled, another booming strike ringing across the valley. Yet she did not flinch. Every line of her body spoke the truth. If he wanted the foal, he would have to break her first. The foal pressed tighter, his heartbeat thudding fast against her side. He lifted his head just enough to glimpse the towering figure before them, and something passed between mother and child in that shared gaze, a promise. She would not yield. Whatever came, she would carry the weight of it so he might live. The gorilla stepped closer, the gap shrinking with dreadful certainty. The mare's hooves tore at the earth, her muscles taut with the gathering of strength. The foal whimpered once more, but now his sound was muffled by her steadying nudge. The valley seemed to fold inward, soundless except for the slow, pounding rhythm of two hearts facing one unrelenting shadow. Then silence fell, deeper than before. The gorilla halted at the edge of the clearing, his eyes glinting with dark intention. The mare stood unyielding, a sentinel of flesh and bone. The foal hid beneath her, fragile yet defiant by her very presence. The air between them quivered, stretched thin with anticipation. The conflict was no longer distant. It had arrived, and neither side would retreat without a cost. The clearing held its breath as predator and protector faced one another, the space between them charged with the weight of survival. Dust stirred beneath the gorilla's fists as he beat his chest again, a booming declaration that shattered the hush. The mare did not retreat. Her muscles coiled, her ears pinned flat, her tail lashed in defiance. Behind her, the foal trembled, his body pressed so tightly against her flank, it was as if he wished to disappear into her shadow. His eyes, wide and glassy, followed every motion, learning fear through her resistance. The gorilla lunged first, a blur of raw force, his arms sweeping forward to seize what he believed was his. The mare pivoted sharply, her hind hooves lashing out with the precision of instinct. The impact landed with a dull, resonant thud against his shoulder. He staggered, not felled but startled, his bellow echoing across the valley like thunder rolling through stone. The foal squealed, stumbling back, but the mare reclaimed her ground immediately, standing taller, as though her strike had drawn not only blood but courage. Dust swirled around them, the air alive with the scent of sweat and earth. The gorilla advanced again, more cautious now, circling with a predator's patience. His eyes flickered to the foal, vulnerable and exposed, but each time his gaze shifted the mare moved with him, always blocking, always shielding. Her body became a wall, battered but unbreakable. Every line of her frame told the same story. He would not pass. The foal let out a sharp cry when the gorilla lunged a second time, arms reaching to drag him away. The mare surged forward instead of retreating, slamming her chest into the beast's torso. The collision resounded like stone against stone, her strength born not of size but of purpose. For a fleeting moment, the gorilla faltered, surprised by the ferocity of a creature so often prey. His hand clutched at her mane, tugging hard, nearly dragging her down into the dirt. Her legs buckled, the weight of him pressing cruelly, and the foal bleated in panic, the sound splitting the silence. It was that cry that pulled her back. Something primal ignited deep within her, older than fear, stronger than pain. She planted her hooves, twisted with sudden violence, and kicked out with both hind legs in one explosive motion. The strike landed square against the gorilla's chest. The sound was sickening, a hollow crack of force meeting bone. He released her with a guttural roar, stumbling backward, clutching at the wound with breath ragged and furious. The foal pressed himself against her as she regained her balance, his tiny chest heaving. She lowered her head, brushing her muzzle against his back in a fleeting moment of reassurance. There was no time for more. The gorilla recovered, though slower now, his movements less certain. He pounded the ground with his fists, each blow scattering dirt into the air, a display of rage to mask his hesitation. The mare stood firm, though her body trembled beneath her skin. She was weary, but her eyes blazed with something unyielding. She stamped the ground, sending a sharp warning through the clearing, her tail cutting arcs of defiance through the dust. Her foal lifted his head despite his fear, watching her, learning not only the weight of danger but the shape of courage. For a long moment, the gorilla hesitated. His breaths came harsh and broken, each one a rasping growl. He studied the mare, saw not prey but an opponent who would not surrender, who would fight until her last breath for the fragile life at her side. The foal squeaked once more, the sound faint but resolute, as if echoing his mother's defiance. The gorilla struck the ground one final time, his roar rattling through the valley. It was not victory but warning, a bitter acknowledgement that the cost of conquest outweighed its prize. With a heavy turn, he retreated toward the treeline, his massive frame dissolving once more into shadow. The forest swallowed him whole, the echoes of his rage lingering long after his form had vanished. Silence returned, but it was not the same silence as before. It carried the taste of dust, the weight of struggle, the trembling aftermath of survival. The foal pressed his head into his mother's chest, his breath uneven, his body still quaking. She bent her neck, encircling him with her warmth, her muzzle resting lightly on his back. Her flanks quivered with exhaustion, but her stance remained tall, unbroken. The clearing lay scarred with churned earth and scattered dust, the mark of a battle neither side would forget. Yet in its stillness, there was a fragile triumph. The mare had stood, and the foal had endured. Their bond, tested in fire, now gleamed brighter than before. And though the forest still loomed, holding secrets and shadows, the pair stood together, undefeated, waiting for whatever would come next. The clearing lay quiet after the storm of violence, dust drifting like smoke through the shafts of late light. The mare stood motionless, her chest heaving, her breath rolling in hot clouds that faded into the stillness. The foal clung to her side, his legs quivering, his eyes wide as though the image of the gorilla's shadow still lingered before him. For a long time neither moved, both caught between exhaustion and disbelief that the danger had truly passed. When the foal finally stirred, it was with a tremble that shook his entire frame. He leaned harder into her, burying his small head against her shoulder. She bent her neck, drawing him close, her muzzle tracing along his back in a ritual of comfort. The gesture was instinct, yet it carried the weight of something deeper. An affirmation that he still lived, that he still breathed beneath her protection. The air around them seemed to release with her, easing from terror into fragile peace. The ground bore the scars of what had nearly been lost. Hoof prints gouged deep, patches of churned earth where the gorilla's fists had struck, and faint streaks of hair and dust clinging to the torn grass. The foal sniffed at these marks with wide-eyed curiosity, his trembling not yet stilled, but the mare nudged him away, guiding him back toward the safer heart of the clearing. She moved with a limp now, subtle but certain, a reminder of the cost she had borne. The herd, distant during the chaos, began to edge closer, their forms emerging from the mist with hesitant steps. Some paused at the sight of her, their ears flicking, uncertain whether to draw near or hold back. They smelled the battle in her sweat, sensed the defiance that had pushed back a creature most would never challenge. One by one, they lowered their heads, not in submission but in recognition. For the foal, this unspoken circle of presence became a new kind of safety, proof that his mother's courage had carved a space even predators would hesitate to cross. The foal tried to imitate her, stamping one delicate hoof against the soil. The motion lacked strength, more playful than fierce, yet it carried an echo of what he had witnessed. The mare watched him with tired eyes, but let him stand a moment in his mimicry, for in it lay the seed of what she had fought to preserve. The possibility of growth, of learning the language of survival not from fear but from example. The sun bent lower, gilding the valley in muted gold. Shadows stretched long across the grass, and the air cooled with evening's breath. The foal pressed closer once more, this time not in fear but in quiet companionship. He grazed lightly, then lifted his head to nuzzle her neck. She lowered her muzzle, returning the gesture with a gentleness that belied the strength she had shown. Their breaths mingled in the fading light, steadying together after the storm. The silence that settled was no longer hollow but full, layered with memory and meaning. Each rustle of grass, each ripple of river seemed sharper, more precious. Danger had passed for now, but the weight of its presence lingered, shaping both mare and foal. She carried herself with a deeper stillness, as if the fight had stripped her down to the essence of what she was. Not only a creature of instinct, but a guardian bound by love. The foal yawned, his body sagging as exhaustion claimed him. He folded into the grass, legs tucked clumsily, eyes drooping with the innocence of youth. The mare stood above him once again, sentinel and shelter. She lowered her muzzle to his mane, breathing him in as though to memorize his presence against the uncertainty of tomorrow. The herd grazed nearby, their movements slow, the valley returning to rhythm. Above them, the first stars began to appear, faint sparks against a deepening sky. The world that had almost broken was whole again, if only for a fragile span of time. The mare closed her eyes briefly, letting her breath slow, and when she opened them the horizon shimmered with the last light of day. Her body was weary, her limbs ached, yet her stance was firm, her duty unshaken. The foal sighed in his sleep, a sound small yet steady, and in that simple rhythm lay the truth of her victory. She had stood, she had fought, and he had lived. Tomorrow might bring new threats, new shadows creeping from the forest, but tonight belonged to them, mother and child bound by fire and love. And as the valley darkened into quiet night, the story they carried was written not in words but in the scarred earth, in the steady breath of the foal, in the strength of the mare who had chosen to stand when everything told her to flee. If this story touched you, subscribe or share where you're watching from. These stories matter.